looking a bit of a step closer, really, to its big bailout, isn't it, Stephen?
Yes, the country set to sell its first bonds in almost 4 years on the international markets today. It's expected to raise around 2.5 billion euros for the country, but the Financial Times is already reporting that in fact the orders for those bonds have reached over 11 billion euros. What we'll be watching for when the sale is confirmed later will be how much their bond yield or interest rate will be on those loans. It's expected to be about 5%, which is a far cry from the some 30% that Greece was paying at the height of the Eurozone crisis. It's the latest, though, in a string of positive economic news for Greece. If you exclude its debt repayments, the country posted a budget surplus of 1.5 billion in 2013. It's also expected to exit recession this year, but there are still some outstanding issues. You can see there, unemployment still at a record high in the EU, 27.5%. The debt pile is massive. That 240 billion euro bailout does still have to be paid back. So obviously that's going to make repaying their debts that much more difficult. And many people, including the opposition in government or in parliament, say that there are still many difficulties ahead. Let's take a listen.
Exiting the markets is one thing, but exiting the crisis is another. Those who are celebrating and those who are using the return to the markets as pre-election fireworks should keep their mouths shut, because the harsh daily difficulties of every Greek has nothing to do with the triumph that the government is talking about.
Well, that's the situation in Greece. In Cyprus, though, its 10 billion euro bailout is just a drop in the ocean compared to the 240 billion that Greece has borrowed. But their president, too, is hoping they'll be able to exit their rescue programme sooner than expected, although he's also warned that sanctions on Russia could hinder the Cypriot recovery.
At the moment, we hope that by the end of 2015, we will be in a position to return to the markets. It is a very short period in comparison to other countries that were in similar programs. In the meantime, any testing of the markets would be determined by the reduction of the spreads.
OK, let's have a look at what's happening on the markets then, shall we, Stephen?
Yeah, we'll start on Wall Street, where things were a little bit more stable on Wednesday after the jitters that we'd seen earlier in the week. The tech-heavy Nasdaq index closing up 1.7%, a really big gain after the recent falls that we've seen. Also quite a good day for the S&P 500, which closed up 1.1%. That represents a broader index of shares. Over in Asia, the Nikkei in Japan bounced back after the big falls that we've seen yesterday. It's trading in positive territory today. It was down over 2% yesterday. You can see shares in Shanghai just tipping slightly into the red this after news that Chinese imports and exports shrunk dramatically in March, further fueling those worries over the slowdown in the Chinese economy.
Got a mega merger to tell you about now. This is one that's being discussed in the US Congress.
Yeah, it's the planned $45 billion tie-up between the two biggest American cable companies, Time Warner Cable and Comcast. The companies say the deal will benefit consumers and businesses, but on Wednesday they had to try to convince US lawmakers of those advantages before regulators rule on whether or not the merger can go ahead. Delano D'Souza has the story.
Stepping up their campaign to get approval of a $45 billion merger, the two largest cable companies in America went before Congress on Wednesday. They're trying to convince lawmakers their merger is good for consumers.
While this transaction will make us bigger, that's a good thing, not a problem. Most of our real competitors are national and global and larger than us, like the Bells, satellite companies Apple, Google, Sony, and Netflix.
The companies say that by joining forces, they'll be able to invest more in technology and infrastructure and compete more effectively. However, the proposed deal has been criticized by public interest groups. They say it would give the new entity too much clout in dictating what Americans access online and watch on television. The combined company would have 30% of the US paid TV market and between 20 to 40% of high-speed internet users.
This proposed transaction consolidates too much power in the combined video and high-speed internet market, giving Comcast a virtual gatekeeper role for fast internet-delivered video and innovative new services. The issue before antitrust officials and communication regulators is really very, very simple. If we want more innovative, low-priced, internet-delivered services, this merger must be rejected.
The U.S. Justice Department has to now decide if the merger complies with U.S. antitrust regulations. Although U.S. lawmakers don't decide on which deal gets given the green light, they've become a powerful voice on merger approvals.
Now then, finally, the boss of an English retailer, he is feeling rather generous. I like this story.
Yeah, it's quite a nice idea, isn't it? This is the boss of the high street clothing chain Next in the United Kingdom, who's decided to share his bonus with the company's employees. Lord
nice.
Wolfson was set to receive a share bonus of around €5 million from a deal dating back to 2011, but he said that he'll share it now with some 20,000 workers, both full and part-time, who worked at Next between 2011 and this year. Now, it'll amount to about €240 each, or a pay rise of about 1.5% for those staff. It's the second time, actually, that he's decided to share his bonus with staff. He said in an email to them that because of the huge rise in the price of the shares of the company, he's benefited quite a lot. So he said that it was more valuable than he could have hoped for, and that's why he decided to share the money.
What a wonderful man. Our boss is watching. You got a message for her?
We don't have publicly traded shares in this company, sadly.
Almost saw Stephen Carroll speechless there. Thank you, Stephen. Stephen with business, not Cat. We've got today's web news now. It starts with a story about people uninstalling